Hey everyone.
Hey, it looks like we are live. We got Doggerland Part 2, of which is actually a lot more material than just Doggerland today.
Yeah,
So
it's
you're
mainly
in for a
about the
treat.
mathematics. Yeah, it's basically
Yeah.
about the math. My main orientation is through mathematics, and I use the Legendarium as kind of investigating its mathematical structures inside of it. So that's what basically this article covers today.
Okay. Looks like it's streaming, so I'm going to turn this off.
It looks like I got an indicator here that says live. So
Yeah, no, we are live.
yeah.
What I was doing though was I was going to keep the video description in one of my other
Oh, I see.
browsers,
Right.
but it
Okay.
started like playing in my earphones, and I'm like,
Oh, I
uh-oh.
see. Right.
That's not what I wanted. So I'm going to have to do something else if I need to go to the video description, but that's okay. We can do this. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to start uploading the presentation. So thank you for that introduction, Dave. And before I do that, I wanted to, because this way people will know what we're talking about right when they're
Right.
playing the video. So how would you like to call it the geometry of myth?
Yeah, that's actually a much better title. I mean, I do reference Doggerland, but the article itself is not about Doggerland. It's more about the underlying mathematics.
Right.
So,
Okay. Dogger. Okay. Tolkien topology and the memory of Earth. Okay. Okay.
and I have a little short, like 2 or 3 paragraph thing to read before we actually start
Okay.
with the main
And
article.
then I'll put Doggerland Part 2.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to scroll it. Okay. So we're going to save it and we're going to apply it. See how I did that?
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And then that
That's
way,
cool.
because a lot of people watch this on their full screen so that they don't see
Hmm.
the video description and everything.
Right.
So I
Right.
thought
Yeah.
that having the ticker running on the bottom, they could know what it's about.
Right.
So very good. We do have one viewer on, so thank you for whoever's watching. If you want, throw a comment in or a live chat, and we'll say howdy. So we've got comments. Okay, so no comments yet. Okay, let me go ahead and upload the file. Chrome tab, geometry of myth, and okay. So let me see what that looks like. Okay, I'm going to see if I can blow this up a little bit.
Hmm.
Yes, we
Right.
can.
Okay.
Ha ha ha!
Okay. Cool.
So clever. So I want to see what that looks like on the screen. Oh, much better. Much better.
Yeah. Yeah. It looks fun.
Okay, excellent. Okay, Dave, I'm going to let you take it away.
Okay. I'm just going to read I prepared a very brief statement before we start
Okay.
with the article here, and that's basically what our organization is about. Because I think some people, with the way that my orientation is, it's a little bit different than Lisa's orientation or
Well,
Dikendri's
anybody's
orientation.
orientation.
Right.
How's that?
Right.
Like anybody on the planet's or orientation. So, because you're not just a regular Tolkien guy either.
No, I'm not. Basically, I basically got started. I mean, way before I had contact with Tolkien, and I did have it when I was 8. The first contact with Tolkien's mythos in the form of The Hobbit was when I was 8.
When you were a child, yeah.
But before that, I was into classic Star Trek. So that's my
I loved that
orientation.
show when I
Yeah.
was a kid.
So
It scared me a couple of times.
yeah,
Had bad dreams about like some creatures that, like, the headless. Remember the ones that were just the heads?
oh yeah.
Yeah, God, I
I
had
forget
bad
what that
dreams
episode
about
was
that.
called, but yeah. So and my dad worked as a hydraulics engineer for a plane manufacturing company called McDonnell Douglas Aircraft at the time.
Yes, very
They no longer
famous.
exist. They no longer
They no
exist
longer exist.
because
Hmm.
Boeing bought them out, but that's
Yep.
capitalism. But anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
because of that, I always had a more scientific orientation, and later on, as I became interested in mathematics, more of a mathematical orientation. So, where Lisa or DeKendry might say that this is a spiritual path, which is fine. That's what we used to call it before we changed our name to Way of Artist Lore. That our name Tia Adelaeva, was translated into the Elven spiritual path.
Yeah.
But my orientation was always basically to the mathematics of the Legendarium as a basically as the stories as a cognitive superstructure. So I could it's basically because I'm on the autism spectrum. It's basically a way of uh, understanding reality. If you've ever seen the Star Trek the Next Generation episode Darmok, it's very much like that.
Look who's
So,
visiting. Yeah.
oh, I see, yeah.
She's meowing. Yeah. She's
Anyway,
kind of wanting a lot of attention, I've noticed this morning. So she's already eaten, and she's already had all of her water, box change. She went outside, like she's done all of her routine, but she's, I guess that she's
right,
still requiring like my gaze, my pet. There's something going on here, so
right.
she might
So,
pop in every now and again.
just
So
to
the thing is that I wanted to comment about that because one of the things that has happened is that several of you will notice that we've done a few different AI related videos because of um, the what are they called, LLMs, large
yeah,
language
large,
model,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
That's a large, yeah,
because of those types of mathematical algorithms that are linguistically oriented, that AI is able to do that we haven't been able to do up until AI happened at a more like accessible scale. Dave has made Neurogate, and like he's got a lot of other projects in the works. We even have one that we haven't introduced to our audience yet, that we, because I have an interest in astrology, and DeKendre has an interest in magic, which, by the way, I mean, there's a lot of things that correlate with those two, even in the ancient times. And we thought about how it would like overlay in the Legendarium, and we didn't want to infuse the Legendarium with anything that wasn't in the Legendarium, right? So, but
right,
Dave
yeah,
Dave was
it,
successful in creating a model that is an astrology or a divination system of the stars within the Legendarium and within the Legendarium viewpoints as well. Um, it's pretty fascinating. We have not introduced that yet. We're still testing it out. We want our patrons to be able to test it out because it's not something that we really want, like, I don't know, available out there because of, like, it's not just a random hey, let's just use this thing and ask dumb questions. That's not what it's for. It's like, it works like horary astrology, wherein you have to have a serious matter that is going on that's affecting you, and it answers in a way that is really just incredible. And Dave, like, I can't wait to talk about that with our
yeah,
patrons. But for the moment, let's go ahead and get into the mathematics of I guess the topology, right, of Tolkien. And
right. Well, I just wanted to finish my little short intro here.
oh,
Okay,
I apologize. I thought you were
okay.
finished.
Okay. Also, I'm a shamanic practitioner, but for me, that's not a spirituality so much as like an ancient technology. So I use it to determine near future events and things like that. Just you know, as was done from the evidence we have up as far back
And
as
you don't use
30,000 years
AI
ago.
for that,
No,
really.
no, no,
You
no, no.
don't need it.
No. Um, and anyway, because of my more scientific orientation, I have a little example here. Think of it like a cathedral. A spiritual view seeks the sacred presence inside. My view is architectural. I'm analyzing the stress vectors of the flying buttresses and the geometry of the arches. I'm interested in the structural mathematics of the mythic engine. If you don't hear a quote unquote spiritual angle from me, it's because I'm not tuned to that frequency. That's not a limitation. It's a feature, not a bug. And that's,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
And
Very good.
so that's the end of my little intro. So,
Okay, I apologize about that. I thought that you
yeah,
were done. So,
yeah.
okay, awesome. The geometry of myth, Tolkien, topology, and the memory
I mean,
of Earth. And hang
Earth.
on a second. It looks like I need to. Oh, there we go. And now it scrolls. Okay. So, the eye of the dreamer.
Do you want me to start reading? Or
Mm-hmm.
okay. The eye of the dreamer. In the deepest strata of the Legendarium, long before the polished chronologies and institutionalized appendices, J.R.R. Tolkien framed his entire mythology through a single figure, Ariel. The name translates to one who dreams alone, and he's from the
And
Lost
there's
Tales.
the bookmark or the
Yeah,
footnote. Yeah,
right.
that anybody is able. So if you guys do it, like you go to the footnote and then you go to the footnote and then you go back, right? Like, so it's,
Right. Yeah, it
yeah,
should. Yeah,
you
if
use
you
the
click
back
on it.
screen and you go back. Okay, very
Right.
good.
Yeah.
There's a link
So,
to this article in the video description that is a blogspot. It says insurgentfirmware.blogspot.com, and then there's like a place. And so if you guys want to read along separately from the video, you're able to.
right. Okay. This 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 was not a literary device to sell books. It was a statement of epistemological reality. That is, epistemology is basically the science of knowledge and how things come to be, how human knowledge as a system relates to primary reality. Tolkien
Okay.
did not Tolkien did not build Middle Earth from the top down, placing mountains and rivers on a grid like a modern fantasy author arranging props on a stage. He operated as a tuned receiver. He was not inventing, he was phonetically recording a landscape that felt entirely given, chronicling a massive structural memory that existed long before his pen touched the paper. And if you don't know what I'm talking about in this sense, we have a whole prior video on Tolkien and shamanism. So
And I just showed that right here.
yeah,
Awesome.
and so then the question becomes, but how does a dreamer record a map? The gated institutional narratives of modern education train us to view maps through a Euclidean lens, a rigid grid of perfect distances and fixed coordinates. To understand the cartography of Middle Earth, we must shatter this expectation and recognize how human memory actually stores spatial data. Close your eyes and walk through the house you grew up in. If you were forced to draw an exact architectural blueprint from that memory, the literal measurements would be wrong. The hallway would stretch too long. The ceiling might feel cavernous, and the distance from the back door to the tree line would be warped. If you overlaid your memory map onto the physical blueprint, they would not align. The metric mathematics fail. But topology, the relational structure, how things are related to another, is flawless. The safe inner room, the barrier of the staircase, the looming threshold of the back door facing the dark woods. These relationships remain absolute. And part two here, the cognitive engine. The cognitive engine of a functorial translator. To understand how Tolkien processed the physical history of Earth into the geography of Middle Earth, we must define what a cognitive engine actually is. It's not a metaphor for imagination. It's a highly tuned simulative engine cognitive processor, and I have a foot end note to that to give a bit
Okay.
more. executing a specific mathematical operation known in category theory as a functor. To understand a functor, we must first understand the environment it operates within, a category. And what this is, category theory, you have various levels in higher mathematics, you have various levels of abstraction. The things that functions, which most people have taken in high school mathematics or introductory college mathematics, those are functions. You have the domain
Yeah.
of a function. It goes through the function and outputs a number, and that's the output
Right. Once it goes through
range.
the
It's called the
equation.
range. Yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
that's a level of abstraction in the sense that variable x, you can plug any numeric value into that variable x and then get the domain of numbers. I mean, get the range of numbers that the function outputs. But there are higher levels of abstraction in mathematics. Go up another level and you come into topology, which is basically the how can I explain it in a simple way? It's basically the mathematical science of changes in form and boundary. One like you can the sort of inside joke among topologists is that a donut and a coffee cup are the same structure because they have a hole.
Or
They have a
and they're
hole
a
in it.
circular,
Right,
but
right,
oh yeah,
right.
they're totally different.
Because in topology, forms can distort into different shapes so long as they keep the same homology, which is basically what the whole count is. Uh,
Wow.
but um, but just a second, I have to tell
Oh sure.
Alexa, I'm done. Otherwise, it'll keep interrupting. Uh,
Okay. Okay.
right. Anyway, so let's see, where was I? Okay,
You were at
topology.
the
Uh,
functor to understand
right,
a functor.
right,
That's where we were.
right,
Yeah.
right. Okay, and then one level above topology, it's pretty much the highest level. It really depends upon your point of view, but there
Okay.
is mathematicians realize that even topology doesn't capture all cases. So category
Hmm.
theory is even at a higher level of
Oh.
abstraction in that and category pretty much exists. The meaning of it is pretty much as in the ordinary understanding, in that you have objects within the category. And they're related to other objects in other categories, and the manner of relation is called a a functor. In other words, it's a morphism, which
Okay. So
changes
I'll
in
go
form
back
from
to the
one category to
definition
the
of
other.
that just for
Right, right,
the camera here.
right,
Okay, for reading that, and then we will go down here. So then we're going to discuss category.
right. Yeah, yeah. Yes, the categories, the universes of reality. Think of a category as a self-contained universe of data. Every category has two ingredients: objects, the things within that universe. In terrestrial geography, these are specific landmasses: the British Isles, the Doggerland Basin, the Scandinavian mountains. Morphisms, those are the rules and relationships. The rules or relationships connecting those objects. In geography, this is a spatial sequence. The arrow might represent the directional law lies west of.
I see.
Uh,
I see.
So the defining rule of a category is that these relationships form unbreakable chains. If object A lies to the west of object B, and object B lies to the west of object C, the sequence is absolute. So you have
Goes, yeah.
A, yeah,
Hmm.
A, the west of B, west of C. This creates an ordinal chain, a strict sequence of order mathematically defined as a partially ordered set, which they abbreviate as poset.
Oh,
um,
okay. Got it.
yeah.
Okay.
Uh, The functor, the bridge between universes. If a category is a self-contained universe, a functor is a bridge between two universes.
I see. Hmm.
Specifically, a functor is a rule that translates the data from one category, primary history, into another subcreated myth. But it's not a random translation. It's a structure preserving translation. It does two things simultaneously. It maps the objects, landmasses, from the primary universe into the mythic universe. It maps the arrows, the sequential sequences from the primary universe into the mythic universe.
Mm.
If Tolkien's mind was the functor, we can formalize the translation as F. That's how you designate that there's a functor.
That's a functor.
Right?
Okay.
And that geography from primary reality maps to mythic
I see.
geography.
Wow.
So, and then part three, the golden rule of the functor invariance. For a translation to be a true functor, it must respect the structural logic of the original universe. It obeys the composition rule. If landmass A is to the west of landmass B in the real world, the translated landmass A must remain to the west of the translated landmass B in the mythic world. The functor guarantees that the chain of events makes sense in the new universe exactly as it did in the old one. The topological sequence cannot break. Um,
Okay.
and what Tolkien was using was a specific type of functor. So that's what this is going into. Uh,
Okay.
the forgetful
This is,
functors.
and this is differentiating from fantasy authors that are like just making a map for their world.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
some of them may inadvertently use category theory, even if
Right.
they don't understand what it means. But they're not doing it in a structured manner. Tolkien was even if he
Right.
didn't know. I believe category theory was developed mostly after his lifetime or
Wow.
when he was a very old man. But it doesn't matter because
It doesn't matter. It still happened.
these
Yeah.
these relationships are operative even if you don't understand what category theory is. It's the mathematical structures still exist independent of a uh, ob,
Right.
observing
Yeah.
mind. Like
Just because we didn't have a name for it or recognize it doesn't mean it didn't exist already.
right. Well,
Yeah.
like the
Hmm.
sun is a
Yeah.
star using
Yes.
hydrogen fusion, but you don't. It existed long before humans were, so it doesn't require a human there to make the sun operate. You know,
Correct.
so
Correct. Right.
so the the forgetful functor, stripping the noise. This is where the standard institutional analysis of Tolkien fails. Map readers overlay Tolkien's maps onto Europe, hunting for the exact matching miles and identical coastlines. When the literal metric distances fail to match, they dismiss the map as quote unquote pure fiction. They fail to realize that Tolkien was executing a very specific type of mathematical translation. It's known as a forgetful functor. The forgetful functor translates a highly complex system into a simple one by intentionally forgetting or dropping specific data points while deliberately preserving the underlying structural relationships. When Tolkien's cognitive mapped the trauma of Doggerland into Beleriand, he intentionally dropped the noise, the literal Euclidean distances, and the terrestrial names and exact square mileage. So that is to say, if you
Mm.
try to overlay Tolkien's map of Beleriand onto the Doggerland coastline, you'll get some matching points,
Oh
but
yeah.
all points won't match, and that's what the forgetful functor is about. It's the it it matches in generalities. So
Right.
that's
Or
yeah,
at least the important points of like whatever he's trying to get across.
right.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I go on here. It discarded the metric data, but preserved the ordinal data. And I have
Oh,
we're not going to play it. We're not going to play it now, but that's
right.
basically
But there's a video
explains
link
this. Yeah,
within the document. Okay. Very
right.
good.
The absolute sequence of the tectonic sequence, the vulnerable shelf, which is west of the retaining wall, which is west of the continental
Mm.
interior, survived the translation flawlessly. Middle Earth is not a coded textbook, and Beleriand is not a secret map of Doggerland. They do not overlay because they're not copies. They're both localized expressions of the same underlying structural law, rendered through different mediums. And I go on with it.
Okay.
Why did Tolkien's cognitive engine run this operation? In mathematics, he used functors like logarithms to translate a highly complex multiplication problem into a simple addition problem. And what that's about is logarithms are actually exponents of a number base. If you're using
Yeah.
base 10 logarithms, it'll this is known as ordinary logarithms. They use base 10. If using natural logarithms, it's base e. But it doesn't matter what your number base is. You can add the numbers and then translate it back to get as if you as if you multiplied them. So you're using a
I
simpler
see.
operation, a simple operation to encode a more complex one. Um,
Okay.
and then you solve it, translate the answer back. In Mythic
Okay.
engineering, use functions to translate the incomprehensible deep time trauma of planetary geology and human migration into a scannable, high fidelity narrative. You drop the static noise of history so the dynamic structure of the truth can be seen. And that's what I'm studying. See,
Wow.
this actually makes more sense. What the various arguments I'm coming up with here actually make more sense if you're reading the article itself, because I mean, I'm reading it out for you guys, but
Right.
uh,
Right.
I'm not a lecturer, so it's the whole thing is designed to be read. But
Right.
I don't mind reading it now. But
Yeah.
I'm just saying
No, I mean, but a
it's
lot of people, because they're busy or what have you, they can listen to this while they're doing other things or what have you. So it's actually good to have this on YouTube. So,
right. Mhm.
and I'd rather have it in your voice than, some AI
Right.
voice reading it.
Right.
Like,
Right.
that's
Right.
so, the way, and as a side note, the way that we're trying to use AI is to help with humanity and being human, and for it to help us and serve us, not to replace us.
Well,
That's not the goal.
it's also what large language models actually are. They're big vector engines. That's how they work underneath the
Mm,
surface that people don't see. All the when a large language model is trained, it produces something called a vector database, and that's all the interrelationships in category theory sense. It's all the various functors between different categories, and this thing does vector math behind the scenes. That's how it can help you write an article, because it can predict uh,
wow.
the next words it should up here. And if and again, the reason a lot of people have trouble with large language models is because they're giving it crap to work with, so it's going to give you crap back,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so if you ask it something like, tell me, man, what kind of girlfriend should I have next? Well, it'll go out and it'll scrape the entire internet for all different relationships, and then
Yeah,
and,
that's so scary.
and, and whichever relationship boils to the top, that's what it's going to come up with. Say
Oh,
you used a word in your question that appears most frequently in S&M. So then it will say, well, you got to get yourself some handcuffs and whips, yo. That's that.
and go on, what,
Yeah,
Tinder or Grinder or whatever.
yeah,
Like, oh my gosh.
so that's why people have problem with it, because they don't structure their questions in a logical manner. So
In the
I mean,
way that the actual AI works.
yeah,
They're
right,
not familiar with the underlying mechanisms of, like,
right,
and
yeah.
by the
See,
way, I'm not even familiar with all of it, and I'm not a mathematician. But what I
right,
can say is that I know that AI is not flawless in getting
right, right,
everything right, but partly because, like you said, part of it is the way that it works. And if you don't know the way that it works, there's things that you probably shouldn't be asking it,
right,
right?
yeah, yeah. I
When you
wouldn't.
know how it works, then you can, like, specify and like really make the parameters tight to be like
Yeah,
what
I
it is
mean,
that you require. And that's what you've done, like with the gems and stuff that you've made, is that you've made a very tight container so
yeah,
that
see,
it doesn't screw up, you know.
yeah, see, the thing about large language models, if you don't constrain their behavior, they will drift off into what
Yes.
the term is hallucination, but
Yeah.
I would call it more of an error state. See, large language
Yeah.
models are
Right.
large language models are not embodied in anything, so they don't have
Right.
a firsthand knowledge of what it's like to be a living being in the physical universe. So when they come up with weird shit, it's because they have no embodied knowledge of what it's like to actually exist. I mean, I'm actually surprised they work as well as they do, considering what's going on underneath the surface with just vector math. I actually would have predicted, say, 5 or 6 years ago that we would never get to the point that we are now, as far as being
Wow.
a useful research
Right.
assistant,
But
which is how I use it.
we're also seeing incorrect use everywhere. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I
So
mean, you can weaponize anything, and that's essentially
I
what
know you can. And
some of these trillionaires are doing, you know. But
well,
that
there's the
yeah,
and not only that, but like even the folks that are like using it, hey, replace your humanity so easily. Like just don't even show up and just have AI do everything for you. You know,
right, yeah, yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's so creepy and backwards. I do feel that humans actually are really craving actual real human being contact. Um,
Right.
and so, no, we do not ever really want to get to a place where AI is doing our, human connection job,
Well,
if at
and
all possible. Okay.
the
Like,
the 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 moronic end state, you might call it, of that is the AI boyfriend or girlfriend. I mean, and now that's just from my
oh,
point of view. That's just crazy. But
yeah. I mean,
to
I
each
guess
their
that the
own. But
psychologist,
uh,
the
yeah,
AI psychologist is, I mean, I do know people that use their AI as a, like kind of a therapist to like
hmm
get their thoughts straight, and they've made it work for them, but they also know the constraints of what they're doing.
right,
um so what they'll do is they know that AI isn't going to give them a perfect picture, but it gives them enough of an idea of like, oh, it's, in other words, like by their intuition they'll go, oh, that's what it is, and then cut that part and then say, let me explore that deeper. So they're not believing every single thing that is coming out. But,
right.
who's to say that somebody isn't using it as a therapist and reading every single thing and going, oh my God, I have this diagnosis. I have this diagnosis.
Right,
I have,
right,
and there are people that literally are just wanting to give a name to their situation. And the more complicated and the more names that they have, it's like collect them all like Pokemon, kind of like,
right.
the other
hmm
thing,
Yeah, yeah,
they collect all of these things so that they could be very special. Like, oh, I have
right,
all of these conditions, and so I'm very special,
right,
right?
right.
And that's not to me the right use of AI either, in order to justify everything that's wrong with them so that they have an excuse
hmm
um to not be, I don't know, working on whatever it is that they're working on, because none of us are perfect. Okay. That's for sure. But yeah, there's a part where common sense is, we definitely need that back in humanity. That there has been a loss of common sense. I definitely
Definitely.
think
Yeah.
that. However, let's get going on. We got the
Oh,
substrate independent engine. Okay, we're at
yeah.
number three right now.
I just want to follow to end a little bit.
Okay.
What I do, because as we, as launched this whole side uh,
Yeah.
discussion here, if you leave large language models un, unconstrained, they can output bullshit. So what I do, If I'm looking to do something specific with one of them, what I do is write in a language that's been developed to to give boundaries and guidelines to a large language model called pseudolang. And that most of my
Pseudolang. Oh,
yeah, and most of my stuff is written in pseudolang to constrain the large language model so it will do what I want rather than do what it wants. So
cool.
that's basically what's going on underneath the surface in
Good
all
thing
of
that
my
we have a mathematician on
yeah
staff.
yeah.
No, seriously, this wouldn't even work if it wasn't for what you're doing. Like it wouldn't
No,
even
because
be a thing.
you get weird ass results, and
Yeah.
especially with anything token related, what it will do, it'll go out and scrape the internet for all
For all the
the
dysfunctional people doing, yeah,
yeah, for all
right.
the and well for everything
Yeah.
in the whole token interest sphere. So it'll bring in
Yeah.
fan fiction and the whole bit. So
Right.
you would get very odd results. And if you've ever asked a large language model, tell me a token related story or something like that, it'll output what looks like fan fiction because that's what it's been scraping.
Because that's
So
what it was.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, the story generating thing that you're creating is actually based on only the Legendarium.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how you can do it. It's like I remember Lisa, this was several years ago now, but you
Hmm.
knew this lady who I believe she used Chat GPT at the time, but she had they ChatGPT at the time probably still does. I don't use it anymore. I use Gemini Gems,
Right. Or yeah.
but anyway, she turned off its access to the internet. I remember you telling me
Yes.
so that it wouldn't go out and do weird shit,
Right.
basically.
And yeah, she
Yeah.
was using it for a completely different field. She is a human design, like certified person that does human design, which is a system created in the 80s by Ra Uru who basically was tripping, okay, on drugs and channeled this whole system in 8 days. And it took him the rest of his life to even know like a tenth of what it could do. And then now people are actually still discovering other layers of what he brought in, and it's pretty intense. Okay. This guy was also like very genius minded, but he like studied Buddhism, studied, and he was very mathematically inclined also, so studied astrology, studied physics, studied, I mean, all these things, right? Really cool. She her particular thing was that she took the very like harsh wake up language that Ra wrote, like for each of the gates and all of the things in human design, and rewrote it into a feminine form, but for women who were more like maybe not as spiritually inclined, um, with lingo, like they're much more business and practical. So she took that language and translated it into practical language. Then she created an AI gem for, and she calls it the Julie bot because her name is Julie. Okay. And what it does is that it has all the back end of all of Ra's material because she's certified in it, and then also her own definitions of all of the things. So then when you type into her gem, you get only Ra and only her. Like you don't get anybody else's input. So she made it that way so that you could, and the purpose of it again is to, like, if you're in that back end and you want to know how you should run your business, and then you tell it your human design, it'll bring out what Julie says and what Ra says. It will not bring out anybody else that is online talking about human design. So that's kind of what you've done, in
Yeah,
that you've constrained it to Tolkien and then your work, like
right.
things
Yeah,
that you've gathered together.
the advantage of doing that using pseudolang is you can be more specific in the exact manner that the LLM is being constrained and given directions to do this or that. So
Yeah.
it's a more precise method of doing what your friend did. So
Right. Yeah.
uh,
Because I would imagine unless she hired somebody to do that, she probably didn't do what you did. And so,
right,
yeah, you
hmm
made it like you locked it in even tighter
right.
because you know how to do pseudo lang, which that's really cool, actually. It's funny because we think about like Dave as not really a linguist, more of a mathematician, but yet here it is. you
Well,
know.
that's the power of category theory. You can apply it to anything. So
Mm.
that's what we're going to get into
Oh,
part
that very interesting. Well, and on
and
that note, let's continue with the
right.
substrate
All right.
engine,
In
independent engine, the
the
linguistic functor.
Sure. To prove that this cognitive engine is executing a universal structural algorithm, we must demonstrate that it's substrate independent. If the engine is truly running a category theory functor, it should not only operate on tectonic plates and geography, it must operate identically on on entirely different data types.
Hmm.
It must work, for example, on language. Institutional linguists often treat Tolkien's subtreated languages as isolated works of staggering genius, analyzing the atomic vocabulary and grammar rules in a vacuum. But Tolkien was not merely inventing words. As a philologist, he was a system engineer of phonetic topology. He understood that language is not a static dictionary, it's a dynamic spatial environment where sounds physically deform when they collide with one another over deep time. And what that about is philology, which is what Tolkien's actual description was of his speciality. That's basically the study of linguistic change over time. So
Yeah.
so when it influences when it collides with another nearby language and then it gets loan words or sounds change because their nearness to one sound in influences the shape that they're going to take over time. That's basically
Right. I
that.
mean, he was constantly changing, even when I look at and it's funny because I mean, I have to stay tuned to all of this. I look at Edward's work because he's a linguist and he, has a
Mhm.
lot of things. And by the way, a lot of interesting theories that he has, and I'm glad that he's working on those now. But um even he like says, oh, Tolkien was constantly changing things because he would learn, like, so what it is that there was kind of a learning process, and then he realized, oh wow, that changes everything, so now I got to go back and change all of these, like,
Right.
so a G sound would become a C sound or something like that. And like, yeah, so it really makes sense to me, like, now this is separate from it, makes sense to me that he was actually learning, from the beings in this plane. It's I mean to me it's very much that he was learning the language of these beings in this plane of existence that he journeyed to, and then was telling their stories. So I think that it was kind of like he was doing both. The reason that only he could have done it, though, versus anybody else, okay, is that he was so gifted in language and category and how to do all of, like, he just was wired that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I go into some detail about that in our Tolkien and shamanism
and
video,
the
but
and the
yeah,
language
yeah,
video too, we have a
yeah, right.
Tolkien language video that we talk about this as well. So yeah, maybe I
Uh,
should link those later. So
I'll go on here. When Tolkien's cognitive engine generated Sindara in the language of the elves of Beleriand, it did not build it from scratch. It ran the exact same forgetful functor used to map Doggerland, but applied it to a linguistic substrate, the historical geometry of the Welsh language, Brythonic Celtic. And the source category, the topology of Welsh. To understand the functor, we must map the source category. Standard European languages like English are largely additive. They build meaning by stacking modular objects next to each other, like adding an S to the end of a word to make it plural. The core
mhm.
structure of the word remains rigid. The topology of Welsh operates on an entirely different set of mathematical rules. It's highly relational and hypersensitive to proximity. The category of Welsh contains two highly specific orthogonal morphisms, and morphisms are the way that
Hmm.
things are mapped to each other,
Okay.
and they're represented by the arrows in category theory. Initial constant mutation, lenition. In this space, words do not possess rigid boundaries. The beginning of a word physically deforms based on the topological proximity of the word preceding it. The environment forces a structural shift. For example, if you if you place the Welsh word, I guess you pronounce it key, dog, next to
Okay.
the pronoun a, his, the phonetic pressure of the environment mutates the hard C into a soft G,
Hmm.
pronouncing
Right.
AG. Yeah.
Okay. Because it's more natural coming out that way versus
Right.
EQ.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely. I
Right.
could see how that
Right.
would work.
And then the second one is a second morphism, I affectation, vel mutation. Plurals and
Hmm.
grammatical states are not all, are often not formed by adding a suffix, but by mutating the internal structure of the vowels of the word itself. An echo of a historical sound that has long since vanished. The singular march horse uh, pluralizes into merch. The singular, and I'm probably mispronouncing these because I'm not a Welsh person.
I
But
see.
anyway,
It's fine.
the singular brown cow
The
pluralizes into
crow.
bride. Yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
and uh, executing the mapping, and that F lang,
That would be the
what you,
functor for the
yeah,
language, right?
exactly, yeah. So it's mapping Welsh structure onto Sindarin. So
Okay.
you're mapping from a primary world language Welsh, and you're taking a lot of its basic structural uh, morphemes and mapping it onto Sindarin. And so when
Mm-hmm.
Tolkien's simulative engine processes data, it indicated a mathematically false forgetful functor. If the engine had simply copied Welsh directly into Middle Earth, it would have been a one-to-one metric clone. So, in other words, if it was, I've seen other people in the past. I haven't seen much recently, but they say things to the effect of, well, Sindarin is just like Welsh. Well, it uses a lot of the same structural rules
Mm-hmm.
as
Right.
Welsh, but it's not a direct copy, or
It's
it
not
would
a
be
direct
Welsh,
copy. Yeah.
or it would be Welsh. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So instead, yeah, and I go on here. Instead, the engine forgot the terrestrial noise to preserve the structural absolutes.
I
So
see.
dropping the objects, the engine systematically deleted the actual terrestrial vocabulary of the Celts. The raw historical data points were discarded. In their place, Tolkien inserted his own sub-created axiomatically derived proto-roots, common Eldarin,
Eldarin. Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
this points to the points on the
Wow.
map changed completely. So what he did was he took the basic structure uh, uh, of Welsh and its various sound changes, but he had his own idea of what sounds pleasant. So he uses
Yes.
the same mapping structure, but derived an entirely
Wow. And
different
I
hist.
wouldn't even think about math being the way that this could be demonstrated. You know what I'm saying? Like I
Mhm.
would have thought that all of that would have been the laws of linguistics, and because that is not an exact science the way math is, but very interesting that math could even describe this function
Well,
to
yeah. Well,
me.
this is the power of category theories because
Yeah.
you can take any system and mathematically model it basically.
Wow.
So uh, I basically I have an older aphorism that I came up with regard to the Legendarium itself and all of its different data. The signal arises from the data. That's what I used to say. But now I also added to it since I started doing stuff with category theory. Everything is computable because if you can
Wow.
if you can map if you can capture the essence of something with category theory, then you can compute all the
And then
different
you can
morphisms.
just, yeah,
Yeah, all different
like
morphism functors.
logically well, maybe not even logically, but just predict what the unfoldment of that core is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Whatever the expression. It's only when you don't get the core right that the unfoldment isn't correct.
Right.
Which we see examples of that all over the place. But so this is very interesting to me, because I would not have thought about having mathematics demonstrate the I guess the relationship between Welsh and Sindarin. I wouldn't have thought of it. I thought it was all linguistic rules, right? So that's very interesting. Yeah.
And I'll go on here. In the target category of Sindarin, the same phonetic vectors apply. When the Sindarin word melon, friend, is topologically placed next to the definite article e, the initial consonant softens under the exact same phonetic pressure as it would in Welsh, mutating into evelon. I guess that's how you would say it. Again, I'm not a linguist. The hard P of Parian, halfling, placed next to the environment, placed in the same environment, mutates to invariant. So you can see the changes there. The nearness alters its internal form that it comes out in. It's as I said earlier, it's a proximity. It's a proximity functor, basically. So
wow.
And
Very cool.
And I go on, when the engine needs to generate a plural, it perfectly mirrored the Brythonic I affixation morphism. The internal vowels warp to carry the data. The singular Amon hill becomes Emin. The singular Adan man becomes Idang.
I see.
And that's why you get these, for anybody who is familiar with Tolkien, these Sindarin words will be familiar because they're all over the Lord of the Rings. So, and I go on here. This is morphological computation. The cognitive engine is not quote unquote making things up. It's ingesting highly structured primary reality, stripping away the destructible surface data, retaining the indestructible relational physics. In both the physical landscape of Beleriand and the spoken language of its inhabitants, proximity triggers deformation. The ocean crashing against the continental shelf and the definite article crashing against the initial constant are, to the simulative engine, two different visual spatial expressions of the exact same structural law running on entirely different pieces of physical hardware. This is the absolute execution of substrate independent structural cognition. So this this article here actually started as a thesis, and then I did it. I think I finally ended up writing like 18 or 19 versions of this before it came out.
My goodness. Wow. Wow. Okay, I didn't know that there was that many versions. I knew that there was at least a couple, but I didn't realize. Wow.
And so now we go to point 4 or section 4.
Okay, geographic functor. Wow.
What we just did with what I just explained with Welsh Sindarin, now we're
doing FGeo. I see the little in the paragraph. Yeah.
Geographic functor, chiral deletion, and the ordinal sequence. Just as the linguistic functor language preserves the topological pressure of phonetic mutation while dropping in terrestrial vocabulary, the geographic functor geo, processes deep time memory of the European landmass by dropping Euclidean distances while ruthlessly preserving the tectonic sequence. In the physical substrate of human memory, the geography of the northern continent is not stored as a grid of GPS coordinates. It's stored as a partially ordered set. It's an ordinal chain defined by the strict directional law of what lies to the west of what. So if we look at the primary historical geography of the source category geo, the ordinal.
Sorry, I will add that back to the stage. Sorry.
I'm not going to read all this because you can look at it and read it, but it's
Right,
basically,
right,
the oceanic void is to the west of the protective island anchor and so
right.
forth.
So
Uh,
yeah, because I think that most people that have seen mapping of Tolkien knows the order of
right,
everything.
right,
And yeah, we don't have the geometric measurements,
right.
but it's not necessary because you just know that
Exactly. It's
one is like locationally in whatever direction.
exactly, yeah, and
Yeah,
that's the point here.
that's the point.
What I've noticed generally, and this is just me as a amateur mathematician, what I've noticed generally about uh, people is that they basically, I think Western culture predisposes people to assume that if you don't have an exact measurement, then it's not mathematics. But I think probably because people
Hmm.
are used to physics, or
Oh, huh.
that's the highest level of measurement. It's referred to as ratio scale with an absolute
Okay.
zero. So
Oh,
well, if it's off in the seventh decimal place, then it can't be real. But mathematics
hmm.
deals with different what are called levels of
Well,
measurement.
when you're
Eh,
making a building in real life, you definitely want everything to be like weight bearing and, like, I mean, I can
right,
see uses for it, but in this use, which is mythology, it definitely applies what you're
right,
working
right.
with. And actually, I was just thinking about something else that this applies to because I'm an astrologer and therefore I'm thinking about it. And you're an astronomer, and so I think that it would also be about the measurement of time. Same thing. It's like we don't
Exactly.
maybe
Yeah.
have the exact many hours or, whatever. We don't have maybe the exact, overlay of the Gregorian calendar versus the Tolkien calendars, but we have a general idea, like, in
Yeah.
other words,
Exactly.
locational, directional, all of
Right.
that. Yeah, we have that too. So this could even be used in, an F time function as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And in fact,
Yeah.
in my art of timeline project, that's essentially what I've done. So yeah.
Ah,
Uh,
okay. Very good. And we
I'm
have
just not
not yet
finished.
done a video on that, have we?
No, I basically what
Yeah.
happened that basically got stalled out, although not by anything, not by
Right.
any problems with it itself. It's that I was switching from Windows to Linux, and that was
Oh,
like
gotcha.
that was like a whole 6 months because
That's
I
a
was trying.
whole other
I,
thing. Okay. Yeah.
I was trying different distros, and the
Yeah.
one I use wouldn't do what I
That was
want, or what.
before all of the AI stuff happened too, right?
Yeah, well, it was at the beginning of it. Yeah, and then
Okay. Okay.
I actually got into AI because I was looking on how to solve Linux problems. That's how I actually got.
Wow.
It's actually pretty good for that, but you have to choose the right large language model because some will give you bullshit advice.
Again,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Which one ended up working for you? I'm curious.
well, let's see. Let's see. I started with Chat GPT, but it has compared to some of the other ones, it has a narrower context window. So it would help me if I had a simple problem, but if I wanted
I
to do
see.
anything complex, it would kind of forget what I was doing before.
Oh, wow. Oh, no, you
So
can't
then
do that. Wow.
so that it was really the one thing I did notice about it, ChatGPT, at least at the time. I haven't used it for like a year and a half,
For
but it
a
was really
while.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really since I can't do creative writing, I do technical writing like this article
Exactly.
is.
I was going to
I
say it doesn't, yeah, Chat GBT doesn't really uplift your purpose. It's
yeah,
different.
but
It's different for what you do and other
what
people that, like when DeKindre uses it. Speaking
yeah
of
what
which,
I,
he can't be with us today. He's having technical problems with his computer now that he is in Scotland. So, um, we will hope that he can get all of his problems solved. But when he uses it, so he uses Gemini for like some of the like, factual things and mathematical things and logical things. But then when he needs something like an art piece or something, he'll go to ChatGPT.
Yeah, what I noticed during this transition time, it's ChatGPT, at least at the time I used it, was actually pretty good at creative writing, which I don't have any skill at. So I
Right.
actually wrote a whole. I was always dissatisfied that Tolkien never continued the Ariel story, which
Oh,
if you if
yeah.
either if any listeners have ever read the Lost Tales, they'll know who Ariel is,
Yes.
and so but Tolkien basically stalled out on that and never picked it up again.
Well, I mean, he only had so long to
What
live. I
what
mean,
what I, what
seriously.
what I did was take all of his notes and projected ideas of what Ariel should do, which are in there, but they're scattered all over the various 12 home volumes.
And is it so if the Tolkien estate ever does publish the rest of the writings of their now great uncle, or you know what I mean, like um yeah, because when Christopher was running it, he only had so much that he let out of the gate, and I know that there's more. I
Well, we
feel
don't
like
we don't
if
really
that
know what.
happens, we should add that to our database and make sure that we
Oh,
have
sure,
all Tolkien
but we
material.
don't actually know what other material hasn't been published.
We don't,
Yeah.
but it's speculated that there's quite a bit that hasn't been written. And the thing is that Christopher was one of the best ways of like knowing his father's mind about like, oh, well, he wrote off in the corner this, and then he did this, and then so like thinking that like it was this, and then it changed to this, and then oh, whoops, this is erased. So we got to look, all of those kinds of things. Like we won't have that kind of input, but I still think it might be valuable, like for the Tolkien, if you will, like database. Okay. Um,
Right. Right.
yeah, if anything ever new comes out, I would be like really about like let's add that to the database that we
Right. Well,
use.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, to finish the answer to your question, I used ChatGPT first. Then I used Anthropic's Claude, but Claude was actually pretty good at coding because I needed. I'm not a coder, but it would
Oh, okay. Oh,
these large language models were getting good enough that that uh, that that they could help with with coding, and Claude at the time was recommended for that purpose. The the problem it had there was that it could handle fairly large projects, but at at the time that I used it, you had to complete your project within a certain amount of time because apparently I only found this out afterwards, but
oh,
I came back to it with something that it had written for me. It was basically it was based on a Linux system called Macaroni Linux, which was based on Gentoo Linux, and
okay. I've never heard of that,
yeah.
but okay.
So I wanted it to react to different system events in a more real-time manner. So I wrote this what in Linux is called a background daemon to basically react to these various changes in state and react to them as fast as it could, like a real-time operating system would.
Wow.
Anyway, I got this thing all written and it was working. I came back 3 weeks later and asked Claude to continue the work because I wanted to add several features, and it said, "Well, I don't know what you're talking about. I never wrote that." And
What? Oh
I
my
said,
goodness.
yes, you did because I'm not a coder and it wasn't the Easter Bunny. Somebody did it.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, something.
I,
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I actually did that, and it said, "I know nothing of any Easter bunny. What I'm telling you is that I never wrote it." And I'm like, "Well, yes, you
Oh
did."
my goodness.
So it really pissed me off. So I
Wow.
canceled that, and that's when I found out about Gemini, Google Gemini, and that's what I'm using now. But Gemini has a much larger context window, so you
Interesting.
typically
Okay, well
you
that's
know
good to know. Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know
Wow.
what you're talking about. I do, and I don't know about any Easter bunny. Put it
That's so
in
that's so
quotes.
funny. It's almost like you're talking to a real like nerd that does
Yeah,
code that doesn't have
yeah,
any,
yeah.
yeah, that's like so focused on code. Wow, that's so funny. Anyway, cool. So, okay, when the cognitive engine ingested this massive structural memory to render Middle Earth, it executed a mathematically specific forgetful functor. It discarded the square mileage, but more importantly, it executed a chiral deletion. Did I say that
Yeah,
correctly?
yeah, yeah. That's
Okay.
it. Yeah.
So I would like to hear what chiral deletion means.
Okay.
So let's
It,
go.
and that's actually I borrowed the name chiral from chemistry. People who know about
Oh,
chemistry will
okay.
know it refers to left-handedness or right-handedness of of molecules. In primary geology, the vulnerable basin of Doggerland was bracketed between two solid land masses: the elevated ridge of the British Isles to the west and the continental coast to the east.
Mhm.
When the cognitive engine ran its functor, it deliberately forgot the westernmost anchor. It cleanly deleted the protective British landmass from the subcreative coordinates. This was not a random error, it was an axiomatic requirement. To forge a theater capable of holding the mythic density of the first stage, the engine required a sacrificial landscape. By executing this chiral deletion, the engine mathematically exposed the Beleriand shelf. That's you'll see it a little bit later in this
Okay.
document. You'll see
Okay.
there's a image that I got. Uh,
Okay.
the engine mathematically exposed the Beleriand shelf directly to the absolute kinetic force of this oceanic void. The Belagar, that means great sea.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
a Sindarin word. Beleriand exists functionally as the terminal vanguard, completely stripped of its western defense. With the western anchor deleted, the subcreative ordinal sequence generated by the engine resolves into a flawless, unbreakable topological chain. And then you
Wow.
have
There
Belagar,
it is.
the great sea to the west, then Valerian, then
Then
Eridu,
Beleriand.
and then Eridu,
Okay. Wow.
and eventually the Hithogler, which is the Sindarin name for the Misty Mountains. So
Wow.
that's what we're
Wow.
talking about. Node one, the Western Vanguard, the vulnerable shelf. That's now underwater. That's where Doggerland was. Uh,
Okay.
Beleriand is the geographic output of the Doggerland mapped through chiral deletion. Because it lacks a western retaining wall, it's a basin existing in a state of continuous vulnerability. Because the engine's linguistic actions required a vast continent where the Sindarin tongue could evolve in isolation, the simulation naturally rendered this massive habitable shelf. And the structural requirements of the myth mathematically forced the exact topological exposure to the Doggerland Basin, setting the initial conditions for its eventual catastrophic failure, which eventually happened. There was a
Wow. Yeah.
Doggerland.
Wow.
Doggerland was originally slowly flooded, and then there was this, something called the Storega slide, which
Okay.
was
Oh, wow.
it was an underwater landslide that basically wiped
Wow.
out the rest of it in a
Wow.
catastrophic wave.
Okay.
So, uh, let's see, node to the retaining wall, the inviolable ridge. Immediately east of the vulnerable self lies the first rigid crest. In a physical world, is the surviving topography of the European coastline. In the Legendarium, the structural anchor renders as the Eriluin, the Blue
The
Mountains.
Blue Mountains. Yep.
The,
Wow.
the, sta the standard gated institutional narrative mistakenly views the Eriluin as the western boundary of Middle Earth. The ordinal sequence proves it's the exact opposite. It's the eastern
It's the eastern
firewall,
one.
right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if you look at Lord of the Rings era maps and look at the Erilu, and they're at the extreme western edge. But if you look at the Beleriand map, you'll see that Beleriand extends way west of that before it was
Yeah.
flooded. So
Yeah.
that's what this is referring to.
Wow.
The early drafts established an explicit boundary law. The High Elven lords of the West strictly observed these crests as an inviolable retaining wall. The exiled Noldor, that is, you know, the exiles from Valinor,
Yeah. Because, yeah, there
uh,
was actually things going on at certain
right,
times. So,
right. The exiled Nora, having made landfall on the exposed Beleriand shelf, trapped themselves within that basin. They treated the arid Luin as a cognitive limit, never passing east over the ridge into the vastness of Eriador while their kingdoms endured. And this is about before Beleriand sank beneath the waves. They didn't progress much east of that because in the arid Luin at that time in there were dwarf kingdoms in those eastern Blue Mountains. The elven kingdoms in Beleriand traded with them and interacted with them, but they didn't establish their own kingdoms east of that. So that's what this is talking about. Uh, and that there's a footnote to that.
Okay.
The
Yeah, and I flashed on it for a moment.
Right. The mountain range functioned as a pressure vessel, preventing the density of the mythic narrative from dissipating eastward. Uh, Yet, as with all high fidelity topologies, this boundary was a selective membrane. While it acted as a firewall for the elves, the dwarves of Novgorod and Belagost used the Irluin not as a wall, but as the beating heart of their civilization. There were
Oh,
two great
right.
civilizations there. Um, they carved the Great Dwarf Road under Mount Dolmed, bridging the vastness of Eredor with the wealth of Beleriand, creating a subterranean economic hegemony that spanned the elven frontier. The Arid Luin mathematically functioned as both a retaining wall of high civilization and a permeable filter for trade, because
Wow. Mm-hmm.
especially with King Thingol in Doriath, there was quite a lot of interaction in the form of trade and you might say um, cultural interchange, not to the extent of people from one civilization went and stayed in the next, but there were certainly ambassadors
Yeah.
and trade routes going on.
Wow.
And then note through the eastern anchor, the splintering
Okay,
wedge.
I'll go ahead and flash that really quick. So, very good.
Moving across the vast interior plateau of Eriador, the ordinal chain terminates at the massive spine on the far right. In the primary physical world, this is a Scandinavian mountain barrier that dictated ancient human migrations across the continent. In Middle Earth, this topological anchor is the Hithoglyr, the Misty Mountains. This far eastern wall functions mathematically as a splintering wedge. The archival drafts revealed that the Misty Mountains were an act of aggressive weaponized geology, rooted specifically by the Dark Lord Melkor to block Orome the Hunter and hinder the elves' westward migration. And I have
Mm-hmm.
an endnote to that reference. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, we'll flash that really quick.
right.
Lost Tales. Yep. Very good.
The physical dread of these peaks induced a profound halt during the Great Journey.
Yeah.
The barrier caused a massive geometric splintering. The elf Lenwë refused the crossing and turned south to lead a contingent of his people that became the Nandor. This is
Right.
terrestrial
And
mountain
there was
ranges
that
forced the
that note. Okay.
this
Very
is
good.
terrestrial mountain ranges forced the evolution and division of human settlements. The weaponized topology of the Misty Mountains mathematically forced the permanent fracturing of elven kinship, culture, and dialect long before they ever reached the Western theater. And then this is the interactive model here.
Oh,
Uh,
I see.
and you'll see if you go a little bit further down, you'll see an actual picture of uh, what it looks like now. But
Oh, wow. I
the
see.
actual the coastline of Doggerland is in the light blue there.
It's in
Uh,
the, okay. Wow.
so you can see how during those ancient days you could walk from France to England without getting your feet wet, other than
Okay.
maybe fording some rivers. But you
Okay.
certainly
And this
wouldn't be.
is this is actual like England, Ireland. Like this
Right,
is a
right.
different mapping.
Well, yeah, and
This is a
this is
Doggerland reference map. Okay.
right, right. And what you do, you'll see the sliders up there. You can these refer to these map different morphisms, different functors that and you can move these sliders around, and you can get something that looks
Oh.
so and
Oh, wow.
this is what it looks like. The picture below, this is what it looks like right now. Now the different shadings of blue refer to different depth levels. So uh, the light blue that's not really light blue,
Right. I
that's
mean, oh, yeah, just to be like really clear in case your monitor is a little off, it appears that the light green dot is for the dark green space right here.
right.
The light blue button, Eriduluan, is for the dark blue space here. And then the gold button here is for this brownish
Right.
over here.
Right.
So just in case like somebody can't really tell the colors.
And those map to the three main ge geographic places. So
Right, right.
the
Those are the
the Hitho
pinpoints. Yeah.
yeah the Hithoker, the eastern ridge is what in the mythology are the Misty Mountains, and those are the Scandinavian mountains here. You can
I
see there
see.
in Norway basically.
Like meaning on
Yeah,
the map here.
you're right, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then uh, the arid Eriduin,
The
that's
Continental
the
Ridge.
Galway,
Yeah.
and that's where you see the mountains in in uh in Britain right there.
Right.
Uh,
Okay.
uh,
So this is
and
the Misty Mountain. I mean, and we're talking about like the topological overlay. We're not talking
right,
about
right,
literal, but
right.
this would be kind of the Misty Mountains. And by the way, the mountain ranges can still even go underwater and other things. So it's not just what's showing here. But you're saying that this would be the middle section,
Right.
the Arid Lewin. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
what would be the Beleriand Western shelf marker?
That that would that would be west of Britain, including part of what's now Ireland,
Okay.
and the rest of the stuff that's now underwater. Uh,
Okay. Gotcha.
so that's where the Doggerland coastline was. In
Right.
that,
Okay.
if you can see west of that, even that sort of tail that goes off to the
Yes.
ex, ex, extreme west, that was actually land back in the day.
Well, and
So
you can actually see here that, this area here, because it's more shallow, you could see that this was once land and
yeah,
that it flooded. You could
right,
see it.
exactly.
I mean, it's insane. Wow.
And you can move those sliders around
Oh,
to
the
get
ones up here. Okay.
yeah to get an idea of how uh, the mythic geography can transform into the the geography
I see.
as it is
Wow.
now. Uh, so if you set the tectonic shear one,
Can they do
that's
that
one.
within the document or do they
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
go to the link that's here? Oh, wow. That's crazy cool. Wow.
Well, the document
In
is
Blogger, the
yeah,
link
yeah,
to
yeah,
that so they can
yeah.
actually do it.
Yeah, yeah. You can move
So let
those
me
things
just,
are
I mean, just move it. Okay, 1.15. Okay. Uh,
so
okay, and
so
I'll
if
just move that to 65, and then this is 0, so let's make that, I don't know, 0.15. Okay,
and when you do that,
so,
you'll see the points in
oh
that.
yeah, it definitely moved.
Yeah. Y-
Wow.
And you can that's why I made this interactive model, because you can play around with
That's
it.
cool. Okay, now I want
Yeah.
to do it in a different way. Okay, let's go like under. Okay, like let's go 90 on that one. Okay, let's go. Okay, 130. Okay, that or 135. That's cool. And then let's go negative on that. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, look at that.
That's why I made
Wow,
this
that's
interactive,
really cool, Dave. Oh my god. Okay,
so
I'm gonna
people
put it back where it was.
yeah, so people can play around with it. Um,
Okay, it was at 100, and then this was 100, I think, and
I
then this was 0.
right. Let me. I'll just refresh it here. Yeah, yeah. It was 1, 1, and 0. Yeah. So and
There we go.
so yeah.
That's what it was. Okay, very cool.
So this
Wow.
is the reason I made this an interactive model is because I think people can get a better idea of especially mathematical structures if they can interact with it versus just talking
Right.
about it.
But
You know,
also, I mean, you can still see that the relational, one is on the left, one is in the center,
exactly,
one is on the
and
right. Like that never
that
changes.
that's what I was, yeah, and that's
Yeah,
the essential
that's the point.
comprehension, that yeah, the essential point that I was trying to get across.
Wow. That's really cool. Thank you, Dave. That was really awesome that you made that.
And point five here, the trauma of waters,
Okay.
geomorphological inversion. In
Okay.
low fidelity in low fidelity world building, authors destroy continents to create narrative drama. In high fidelity mythic engineering, destruction is a structural requirement. When dealing with deep time geological trauma, the cognitive engine does not process the event instantaneously. It requires a mechanical unpack time for high density data dumps. That is to say, if something traumatic happened, the stories are passed down over succeeding generations, and they develop a sort of mythic quality over time. So
Okay. Okay.
the catastrophic oceanic impact must first be contained, allowed to exert pressure upon the linguistic and cultural development of the inhabitants, and only then permitted to reach its absolute topological conclusion. The force of true civilizational phase transition to violently drive the survivors into the second age and shatter the existing paradigms, the board must be wiped clean. To understand that and this is referring to the
Mm.
sinking of Beleriand in the
Sinking a Beleriand. Yeah.
in the mythos. To
Hmm.
understand this reset, we must look at the physical substrate of human memory. In the deep time history of Europe, the loss of the western lands was sudden, brutal, and absolute. As the ice sheets retreated, the highly vulnerable low-lying basin of Doggerland was hit by this Storega slide. At around 6200 BCE, a massive submarine landslide off the coast of Norway triggered a catastrophic tsunami. A wall of water annihilated the exposed continental shelf, drowning communities and deleting the basin from the physical coordinate space in a geological blank. Now, to give you a little bit more context, the sea levels were gradually rising, so they were losing parts of Doggerland as a hunting and dwelling place slowly. But
Wow.
when this happened, this actually
And
formed
then it was.
a tsunami that was overall, yeah. And
Mm,
at that point, because the villages were destroyed, probably a lot of people were killed, and it became more swampy and like saline brackish.
yeah.
So some of the plants were dying because of the saline water intrusion and so forth. There's a bunch of
Yeah.
papers on geology and archaeological finds that 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 talk about this. But
Cool.
this is basically what was going on.
Wow.
it, institutional scientists utilize sediment cores to prove this event. The subcreative agent utilizes a structural sediment of mythology. In other words, what actually happened became mythologized. And Tolkien himself, even if he didn't directly track those mythologists, mythologies, the pattern of this event basically underlies a lot of European culture. So
Yeah.
we don't we and I think as a shaman that he was picking up some of these things shamanically in the
I
form
do
of
too.
vision. He
Yeah.
actually spoke. He actually it's more in my in our video on Tolkien and
In
shamanism,
the Tolkien
but
shamanism video.
but
Yeah.
he had this recurring dream of a great wave coming over the land and wiping out everything that was there, and that was it happened apparently many times during his life. There's the references to that are in the other video, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
basically
that's
what
a
was
really
going on.
common knowing.
Yeah,
Although I do think that a lot of people think that it was the sinking of Atlantis, which could be like if you will, likened to Numenor, Atalante.
right. Hmm.
But it's interesting. Like, why wouldn't he be tuned into this actual Norway
Well,
catastrophic
well,
tsunami that sunk
and
Beleriand? That would be just as much of a
well, yeah,
yeah.
like I say here, across the human manifold, the sinking of the West is a universal data point. So
It
that's
is a
where,
universal data point. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
so that's where you get the
Yeah.
Atlanta stories and things like that. You can't
Yeah.
prove precisely where they came
Well, it's
from,
not just Atlantis. Even in the Bible, there's the sinking story with
right,
Noah and stuff.
right, right,
There's all kinds of, like all of the legends talk about flooding for sure, like
right.
at some point. So yeah. Well,
And when we're I'll back to Tolkien Legendarium here. When the Indian Geographic Functor FGeo finished unpacking its embedded database of historical trauma, it rendered it as the War of Wrath. That's the in Tolkien's mythos. That's when the Valar came back and made war upon Melkor, and beat the consequences of that were the sinking of Beleriand. So,
I see.
and I refer to I hyperlink to the War of Wrath there in case people don't know what it is, because
Okay.
I know some people are more familiar with Tolkien's works mainly through Peter Jackson's movies, so
Yeah. So
they
it's
wouldn't
on the
really cover
Tolkien
this.
Gateway. So
Yeah,
yeah, they can
yeah,
read about
yeah.
that.
The
Okay.
cataclysm that sank Beleriand was not a literary invention; it was that topological execution of the Storega slide against an unprotected continental shelf. And then the mathematics of the inversion matrix. This goes into matrix math and differentiation here, which I'm not really going to go into in great
This is
detail.
for the super math nerds, right?
Right, right, yeah. Here's where the transition from pure topology back to specific geometric deformation occurs. The destruction of Beleriand is not merely the erasure of a map sector, it's a mathematically precise matrix inversion. And it's called affine tectonic deformation. That's your
Okay.
again. I'm not going to go through it all
Yeah,
because
because like you'd have to be a mathematician to read all
otherwise,
of
yeah,
these
otherwise,
things, but
yeah, and I would have to be teaching a mathematics course, and I'm not a very good
exactly. And
teacher.
it's
So,
yeah, and actually like to people that understand what all of this might mean.
right,
Um so yeah,
yeah, the
but
Storega,
it's here for anybody who is a mathematician that says, "Hey, how did Dave come up with this?" And here it is.
yeah, and if you move those sliders around up in the model above. If you go for the put the SY, which is let's see here.
Okay, SY.
That's yeah, that's the vertical stretch here. Let me
Right.
see.
And what
So
do I
what?
what do I need to put it at?
Well, you can just move it back and forth, and you'll see the colors change position. Basically, I mean they change.
Oh, I can see it right here.
It's easy. It's easier just to show it than to try to explain it.
Okay, well,
So
now I'm doing it in real time.
yeah, yeah.
So I see what's going on here.
So that's what
So let me see what.
that's what geomorphological inversion is
Oh,
that I'm speaking of. And
oh, and this just moves the point. Oh, okay, got it.
yeah,
Okay, I see
yeah.
the tectonic. Okay, and then this is the across one. So there it goes. Yep. How about that? Very good. So yeah, and then like you could see that it'll cross itself at some point. Yeah. Wow. Very interesting, Dave. Like really, really very detailed demonstration here for the layperson.
Right.
Yes. And for the mathematicians, one thing I love about Dave is that he shows his work.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to, like I said,
And he sources it, and he does it all so you don't even have to look.
I tried this before. Because I normally publish my articles on HackMD, but HackMD won't allow anything interactive. I put it
Yeah,
in there. I put it in there, but it just stripped it out, so you couldn't have
yeah,
an interactive
right.
model.
So we
So,
wouldn't be
uh,
able to see it. Wow.
so
Hmm.
most of my articles are on HackMD. But what I'm going to anything that requires an interactive model in the future, it'll be on this
It'll be on
blog.
Blogspot. Yeah,
Yeah.
very
So.
good.
And the collapse of the ordinal chain, and you basically already showed that with
We
the
already talked about this.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
very cool. But
and
yep, this is the same sequence. Yep, when the matrix inversion triggers, it executes a secondary. Okay, yes. Okay,
yeah,
I see. And then the ocean. Okay, the oceanic void crashes against the unbroken retaining wall of the arid Lewin, tearing it in half until the tectonic shear to carve the Gulf of Loon. Okay, the Beleriand
yeah.
shelf.
And that's
Okay. Oh,
if
gotcha. Okay.
if you look at the Lord of the Rings map,
Yeah,
you'll see that the mountains are kind of split there.
they
So
definitely are. Okay, the
right.
Beleriand shelf is violently deleted from the active positional coordinates, drowning it under the shear. Yeah. The ordinal chain recalculates instantly. Okay, yeah, because it was an instant happening pretty much. Yeah.
Right. So you've
Um,
got the Great Sea there, and then
yeah.
west of that is Eriluin, and
Arid
then west of
Lewin and
that
then
is
Eriador. Yeah.
Eriador, Eriador in the time of the Lord of the Rings, which is on its
Right.
not
And so,
not extreme western edge, but a bit inland. That's
yeah.
where the Shire is. So that's that
Okay. There we go. So there's the whole, like, Tolkien world all the way from the beginning to the Lord of the Rings. So, um, yeah. Okay, very good. So then the discretization.
Yeah, that means to make discrete. In other words, to make
Oh, discrete.
yeah,
Oh, gotcha. I
yeah,
thought it was like discrediting, but then I'm like,
no,
but why is it a
no,
T instead of a
yeah.
D?
the the
So,
description of topology from continuous line to sparse array. What this is talking about after Beleriand sank, there were certain islands of it that remained above the water. So that's what this next thing is going to
in
deal
the
with.
topography. Okay. All
When
right.
analyzing the Chiral deletion and the war of wrath, we must refine our understanding of the mathematical output. The tectonic deletion of the western shelf was not a total erasure of mass. Total erasure is a binary operation, a setting of the system to zero. In other words, it would be all all water, but that's not what happened. The cognitive vision processing the high fidelity telemetry of the Earth executed something much more complex. It shattered a continuous one-dimensional boundary line into a scattered two-dimensional discrete array. And if you can see
Yeah.
the map there,
So here
this
we
is
are. This is an
yeah,
interactive map.
right. No, it's not an
Okay.
interactive map, but it does show on the right hand edge. You can see where
That's the mountains.
yeah, that's those are the Blue Mountains. You can see the inlet there,
Okay.
Gulf of
Okay.
Loon, and then you can see parts of what was Beleriand, and that's what you can see
Yeah.
Doriath there. That's underlying the now
Right.
submerged river system. You have various islands. You have at the furthest west, in other words, furthest left, you have Tall Marwan. You have Tall Fuin in the center, and uh,
Oh,
Tall
Himling. Okay.
Tall Himling
Wow.
there, and
Wow.
so. And these are mentioned
Those are
in
first stage. Okay.
yeah, these are mentioned in in Tolkien sources, but again, uh,
Yeah.
in the history of Middle Earth, you have to dig around because not everything is in it basically arranged in the pretty much in the order that Christopher came across stuff as he was unearthing all of his all of his father's notes and unearthing almost literally because the accounts I've read, apparently all the stuff was in various like cardboard boxes and whatever, and not
Right.
really
Yeah. Just
arranged
literally
properly. So,
packed
yeah,
away. Yeah. Wow.
yeah. So,
Wow.
uh,
Very interesting.
uh, during the first stage, the highlands of Beleriand function as a continuous, unbroken retaining wall. Mathematically, this is a connected topological space. When a geomorphological phase transition triggers, the absolute kinetic force of the ocean does not vaporize the high-density continental anchors. Instead, it vaporizes the morphisms, the physical land bridges and continuous planes connecting them. The continuous space is subjected to extreme tectonic shear, and its structural connectivity violently fails. Remains no longer a line, it's a sparse array, and that's what the islands above are showing you.
Okay, and that's what like this was to demonstrate.
Yeah, and then down below there is an actual sea level map, what's called a bathymetric map there,
Oh,
and and this is where you can see where Doggerland was. You see that thing at the extreme left in the interactive model above. That sort of strange shape there on the west.
okay.
That's what's called Porcupine Bank, and
Oh,
that was above the water
wow.
during the Doggerland time. So everything in this bright white was
Yeah,
above the
meaning
water
with this
for the most part.
Hebridean shelf and Porcupine Bank,
Right,
like that
right,
entire thing, this
yeah,
was all land at one point.
right, right,
Yeah, I could see that
yeah,
definitely. Yeah. Wow. Incredible.
and
And it's really obvious too because it's like it's a big drop,
right,
like where other places are. Like it's so just one color and then zoom,
right,
like you can
right,
really see that shelf.
right,
Like it's pretty crazy.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
and I list the source where I actually got this from.
Okay.
The
Cool.
whole thing, as I remember, the map of the source is extremely large, so I cut a section out of it. Uh,
Okay. Got it.
so yeah,
Good idea.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because
And
yeah,
look,
why we don't need the whole thing. We only need the part like that we're necessary describing. Okay, so we're down
right,
to the linear algebra part.
right. Well, and that's what sparse array means. The linear algebra, when a structural matrix consists of overwhelmingly empty values, the oceanic void, punctuated by only a few highly dense non-zero data points, is known as a sparse array, and you can see that in this map, everything
Yeah,
that's a white color there is
that white color. Yeah, very
was
good.
above the water in those days.
Right, and
Uh,
then it's a repeat of the map that you showed before,
right,
like with
right.
the with the points.
Yeah, where you
Yeah,
have tall Morrowind to the extreme west, you
yeah,
have tall Fuin, the largest island, kind of in the middle, and tall Himling, which is closer to the what
right.
would be
And
the
then you
coast there.
just
Yeah, we
wow,
when we
there it
scan the
is. Boom, right here. Here's your 3 points.
yeah when I scan the primary physical telemetry of submerged ortholanic shelves, this is exact high density relational structure. The real world equivalent snap into the grid with absolute precision. The central landmass, tall Fuin, maps flawlessly to the massive Rockall Plateau. The eastern outpost, tall Himling, maps to the isolated Anton Dorn seamount, and the isolated Vanguard Tomora maps to the extreme western drop-off of Porcupine Bank. So you see,
Wow.
these are at different heights. So
Right.
the the whiter it is, the closer to what's now the surface of the water. Before the sea levels reach their current level, a lot of the stuff that's bright white here was above the water. And in the lower areas show as blue. So those were, even during the days of Doggerland, those were underwater.
Okay, I'm just
So
gonna go back up here, like to show. Yeah, wow. Very cool. And I don't know if you guys can you see my cursor on here?
yeah, yep,
Okay, like
yep,
here's Porcupine Bank. That's the eastern
yeah,
like
yeah,
part where and then the plateau, and then like there's the channel. Oh, okay, over here, the sea
Right.
door. Yeah, Eriador Seamount, Edoras Bank. Like, wow, this is really incredible. Wow. Now, did
And
you add? I have a question. Did you add the point, the Eriador Seamount, the Edoras Bank, like, because those are names from Tolkien
well,
on this big
they are
island. You know what I mean?
they are names from Tolkien, but they're the people who named them were not doing what I was doing. They were just a lot of
What?
this is geek culture. So
Wow.
so
Okay.
when geek culture, who is familiar with the Lord of the Rings, found out through bathymetric C4 mapping these different things, they just plucked names out of Tolkien and slapped them on. That's
Wow.
that's
That's
essentially what.
really cool.
Yeah.
Who would have known? Like, it's already done for us, right?
Yeah. And as you see, the ones that they're mapping are still in a relatively blue area, so they were below the
Yes,
water. They were below the water even
they
when
were
Doggerland
already.
was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So uh,
Wow.
and, and this whole variations in sea levels have happened many times during Earth's history.
Yeah.
So this is just the latest one. You
This is
know.
just the latest one. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. So here we are at time reversed interpolation and
Interpolation and
shamanic
shamanic
telemetry.
telemetry. This
Yay.
transition exposes the ultimate capability of the shamanic cognitive engine. That refers again to the Tolkien shamanism, which is, I believe he was receiving more data from, you know, a lot of people think that Tolkien wrote the various legendarium documents by finding ancient writings in some Oxford library or something. I don't. I think because that was his actual statement, but that was a how can I put it? Because he was used to actually doing that during his professional career with
Right.
like Middle Ages documents and Dark Ages documents. Uh, that was what he was familiar with. So he just took that pattern that he used in his work and said, well,
Right.
uh, the 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 story of the Lord of the Rings comes because Bilbo wrote it down in Rivendell. Da, da, da. If you're familiar with the Lost Tales, all this stuff started coming to him basically when he was a young soldier during World
Yeah.
War One.
Yeah.
So
Young
and
man. Yeah.
he was getting a lot of this visionary stuff and writing it down when he was under fire
Which is
in the trenches.
incredible by
Yeah.
itself.
So that's what I mean by the shamanic cognitive engine. So
Yeah.
uh, the terrestrial geomorphology of the present day is a sparse array, and that's the islands that we showed above. Institutional cartographers mapping these feature later, this is what I talked about, later slapped arbitrary third age names like Gondor Seamount onto them, treating telemetry as disconnected
Wow.
aesthetic paint divorced from physical reality. And that's what I was talking about, geek culture, because that's what they do.
Okay. Okay.
I-
Well, funny.
If you, if you, if you, if you've noticed, some of the like a new asteroids discovered or whatever, they'll name them to whatever uh,
Yes.
whatever their particular form of geekiness is.
Yeah.
They'll slap a name on it. That's basically
Hmm.
what was going on here.
Okay.
Tolkien
Gotcha.
Tolkien's engine, bypassing the localized metric noise by shamanic resonance, accessed the steep time array and recognized it as a degraded skeletal structure of a decimated continent. That's the Doggerland remnants. Once it acquired the coordinates, it ran the simulation in reverse. Through time reversed interpolation, the agent calculated the structural requirements necessary to get node A, Porcupine Bank, node B, Rockall, and node C, Anton Dorn. Interpolated the missing tectonic mass, effectively reversing the geological clock to back calculate the existence of unbroken plains that must have once bound these highlands together. The engine found the graves first, and from the geography of their placement, reconstructed the world that died
Wow.
around them. And that's basically what we've been describing. Uh,
Wow.
and and then this last section is more about me than the Legendarium. It's how
Oh, okay.
it's how I come up with this stuff. The subcreative mandate, the Sola Data protocol. Uh, my system engineering approach bypasses the rigid hierarchy of standard analysis pattern algorithm we call Sola Data by data alone. It's a write of
Mm,
an architectural hack of Sola Scriptura, which you may have heard of. That's
okay. Hmm.
in Protestant Christianity, especially Lutheranism, which I was
Oh,
when I was a little kid.
when you were little, yeah.
Yeah, my mom was a fairly devout Lutheran, and their whole thing is sola scriptura. In other words, you don't need the Pope to tell you
Right,
what is
right.
true and what isn't. If you're interested in the Bible, you should understand it on its own terms, and that's so. I was aware of that mental worldview. So I just
I see.
instead of sola scriptura, I said so by data instead of by scripture alone. I went by data
I
alone
see.
because of my
Cool.
mathematical orientation. I derived from an architectural hack of Storm Satura, it removes the infallibility because in Christianity, the people that subscribe to the sola scriptura idea believe that the Bible is inerrant. You know,
Right, right,
that's a term that you hear frequently. So
right.
I just took the infallibility and inerrant and did a more of a legal preponderance of the evidence method to show
Yeah,
what
yours is
probably
actually
this
better
going.
than
Yeah,
what somebody says because it's what
right,
is. It's
right,
what exists. So,
right.
um,
And
yeah.
this is what I mean by contradictory texts, whether competing drafts of the Legendarium or varying structures of primary myths like the Epic of Gilgamesh, are no longer scripture dictated by an author god. They're raw telemetry from the underlying
Mm,
architecture, and that's what I mean by my signal arises from the data aphorism, is that uh, the the data set has has inherent structures that we can discover.
right, and
It's
that's
not
what Neurogate is based on too,
right. Yeah,
like
and
the gem.
it's
Yeah.
right. So you don't have to say that. Well, if Tolkien said that the fourth age started 6,000 years ago, then that means exactly 6,000 years ago, and we must do that. No, you what you use is the preponderance of the evidence of what the data in this data set in this particular case the legendarium point to. So what Tolkien said in an offhand comment may or may not be relevant. You have to take that in 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 in
Yeah, but he even estimated when he was
right. Well,
asked,
yeah, that was
like,
yeah, that
yeah,
well, a
because
lot of the
it's not like you can actually measure it. It's like, you
right.
know,
A lot of those were, and some of those were offhand comments, but people were
yes.
interviewing or asking him, and they said, "Well, it seems to me that it should be this and such." Well,
Right, right.
and that's what a lot of people in Tolkien spaces, which is why I don't frequent them, because the
Yeah.
people who have this idea piss me off because Tolkien said this and such, so it must be true. The problem with Tolkien is he said many things at many different times, oftentimes contradictory. There's a lady who has a lot of credibility in Tolkien scholarship circles named Verlyn Flieger, and
Yes.
she wrote an article called "The Arch and the Keystone," which explores that very thing that Tolkien gave
Oh,
contradictory statements about many things at various times. So if you take a Tolkien saying and say, well, this is true because Tolkien said it, then you're doing the idea of legendarium research a disservice because he said many
hmm,
different things at many different times. You have to take his statements in combination with the
right.
rest of the legendarium, and
Well, and
then
also weigh each of the factors appropriately
exactly
because some of them
right,
are going to be like less important because they were older information that he then
exactly right,
corrected.
right.
So, um, and well, you know how I feel about that process. I think that it was being given to him. I mean, I think because he even said that, you know.
Mm.
So I think that whoever he was working with on the other side in his journeying was directing a lot. So yeah, he had to keep changing it. He's like, oh shit, I thought it was this way, and change, and change. So yeah, I could see why he ended up having to change
Right.
everything. And
Right.
so you quote him like with one of his old quotes, and it's like, that's,
Yeah,
like, da da da, like, and then it's like, well, wait a minute. No, actually, if you go back and look, he changed it over here,
yeah,
So,
what you have to do, and
hmm
I'm a mathematics guy, so I'm going to explain it mathematically. What you basically have to do, you have to take a Tolkien utterance, and you consider that a data point of whatever.
okay.
Say the first stage was six. I mean, the fourth age started 6,000 years ago. Let's say. You have to take that in light of all the other Legendarium
Right.
data, and you have to consider all those vectors and where the kind of like they're called vector sheafs. But what it is basically, the easier way to explain it is think of water, little streams flowing downhill combine into larger brooks, which contain into larger rivers, which eventually can combine into a main river and flow into the sea. So you have to see where all these different water flows are actually going in
Right.
light of all the other
Right.
water, and eventually where the river's going and where its mouth is. That's
Right.
that's that's what you have to do if you want to really explore the legendary in depth. Is you have to consider all the other flows. So
Right.
uh, uh,
That sounds right
so
to me.
we're almost done here. So
That's okay.
when the engineer encounters conflicting data, they do not reject it. They ingest the raw inputs, holding the contradiction and superposition within a simulated sandbox, and observe the topological output. By treating the text as raw telemetry rather than static gospel, it observes that the cataclysm of Middle Earth is a clean mathematical transformation of a continuous boundary manifold. The orientation space is inverted, the structural metric data is drowned, but the absolute continuity of the topological sequence remains flawlessly 100% preserved. It's mandate to take this topological perception out of the books and drag it into the dirt of your reality. When you watch shifting geopolitical boundaries of the displacement of communities in the present day, you're not just watching the news. You're witnessing the exact same structural forces that sank Beleriand and shattered the arid Luin. You orient yourself not by the panic of the moment, but by the invariant laws of human history. The only thing that survives the phase transition is the structural memory that we carry forward. And then at the very bottom here, that more of my
And
link to
more
more
of
of my
your
writing.
writings here. Yep.
And this is I'm into I'm into alt rock a lot. So I have YouTube playlists going on in the background when I'm thinking about stuff. And
when you're doing things.
this is actually what inspired the Cyril. Foo Fighters Walk and Kings of Leon's Closer. So there
Yeah,
we
and
go.
we'd play them, except that then we would end up
Where you get a
delaying the
copyright strike.
video.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but you can play them for yourself, and he links the videos. So very good.
Plus you
So
get a
here's all
copyright.
the
So yeah.
appendices. Appendix A, and then this was like, I mean, Dave is very
That
thorough, as you guys can see. Here's his footnotes, all in order. Okay. So Dave, early on, I think there was a number 2 that was done twice rather than a 2 and a 3. So you may want to go back and check on that.
okay.
But
Okay, what
I mean, I
you
don't think
mean?
it matters for the purpose of this video. I mean, I think that because you could see
You
number
mean
3 on the screen anyway.
the main section or
Yes, up
what?
in the main section, there was a footnote for number 2 that matched number 2, and then I think that there was a second number 2 that was actually
Oh
supposed to be
well.
number 3, but
Oh well.
you could see number 3 anyway when we went to it. So I think that it was fine, but I just
Okay.
wanted you to go back through and double check
Well,
that.
I on on some of the end notes I did do more than
Oh,
more than more
oh,
than
so
one end
there's
note.
some that you did reference the same footnote. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, then maybe it's fine. I apologize. It might be like fine then. Okay, very good. So we're back to the beginning. Yay. So I'm going to go ahead and click stop sharing. And we are back. So, oh, Mildo is here. Hey.
Hey, cool.
Yeah, Mildo came on. Nice. So, and Merlin, okay, you just got here. Oh, okay, Vera Faith is here too. Excellent. We've got, and Vala Music was here. And we have Merlin still. Okay, Anna Roos. And then, so Mildo came in. That's so cool. Yeah.
Now
Passing
this
by.
is
It's wonderful to see that you guys are still talking to people about such things. By the way, I found out about Doggerland thanks to Dave, who wrote about it in the forum. So he's thanking you for
cool.
giving him a
No
heads up
problem.
about
Yeah.
Doggerland. And I mean, since he lives in Italy, like,
Right.
I would think that that would be like a really good thing to know about, you know, because, yeah, very good. Okay. So that's our comments for the day.
And just to let people, this is probably the most mathematically dense article that I've ever
That,
written.
yeah, that I would definitely agree with.
Yeah.
It's like, but it's okay because I think that it's cool that and maybe we should have, like, maybe in our tags like mathematics or something like that, because I didn't think about tagging those things. I
Right.
should probably update the tags for people that are, you know, that think like you, that might like Tolkien, and that might actually really appreciate this
Right.
piece, you know.
Right.
So yeah, because you're one of a kind, Dave. Okay, and that's a compliment. Okay, it's a good thing. So anyways, you guys, I hope you have a wonderful day. I've got to get ready. I'm supposed to go after the video. I talked to a friend of mine here in LA, and I'm supposed to go see them at their office in a little while. So that's what I'm doing this afternoon. But it was really great, and I'm glad that some people from Europe were like being able to watch this, because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
we're trying
Definitely.
to do it so that we can have our European folks. And not only that, but Dekindre is now in Scotland, so he's also a touch point there. So we don't have him in Hawaii anymore, so we don't have to start as late as we used to have to. So we're trying to make it so more of our EU and UK people can watch our videos. So we're definitely excited about that. So glad that you're here. And so we'll let you guys all get going. You have a wonderful weekend, a great summer. We are coming up on, let's see, calendar-wise, I believe that we are coming up with the Moron and the Queron of the month. Let me grab my calendar.
Oh, before we go, did you want me to tell about my latest project or?
Yes, do that. Do that
Okay.
while I'm
Well,
looking for which Moron and Queron
okay.
it is, because I got to post those soon.
Now, I haven't even told Lisa about this yet, but it's something. It's an idea I had a few days back. Basically, I'm not sure how many people know this or not, but the Silmarillion, as published, most people know it was edited by Tolkien's son Christopher Tolkien. But there's a book called Arda Reconstructed: The Creation of the Published Silmarillion, and it goes through all the source materials that Christopher used, and he did a you may have heard
Should I
some.
type this in the live chat? Arda Reconstructed?
You can if you want to. Yeah, it's do you want the author's name and such?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
if you have it.
yeah. Just a second here.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called Arda Reconstructed: The Creation of the Published Silmarillion, and the author's name is Douglas Charles Kane, Kane, last name.
The creation of the Silmarillion?
The creation of the published Silmarillion.
The published
Yeah,
Silmarillion. Okay.
because Christopher Tolkien, like I said, when he encountered his father's materials, they were all in cardboard boxes and different
Okay,
little.
Douglas, what's his middle initial and last name?
Douglas Charles Kane. You can say Douglas C. Kane if you would.
Charles
Yeah.
Kane. Is it Cane or Kane?
Kane.
Okay, perfect. I
Now,
got that in
what does?
the live chat. Okay, Arda reconstructed the creation of the published Silmarillion by Douglas Charles Kane with a K.
Yeah, and it was published. Let's see here, 2009, copyright 2009.
Okay,
But what he did was he went through all of all the published materials of that later came out in History of Middle Earth, and used a number of sources and interviews to come out with what Christopher Tolkien probably did, and why he chose to include some things that his father wanted but suppressed others. And it was basically done before the Silmarillion was published in 1977. Uh, his father never finished it. So there were all these source materials in boxes. He got together with this fantasy writer named Guy Caravel Kay, who he wanted help with turning all these voluminous notes and chronicles and so forth into a publishable novel. So they worked on it, and this particular book explains what was retained and what was left out. So the idea I got was, okay, if I have this resource that told exactly what Christopher Tolkien did, insofar as we can determine, plus the various underlying source materials, could I use an MLM to back construct the most probable form that the Silmarillion would have taken if Tolkien had time to finish it, given the published materials that we have? And it said yes, and so I'm developing a gem for that. I'm just developing it yet. I haven't done
wow,
anything with it yet, but uh, it
that is a
basically,
cool project. Oh my
yeah.
gosh,
So
very awesome.
it's based on that. It's based on the underlying pseudolang of another gem I wrote called the Mythic Weaver engine, which basically you can give it an idea and it'll write a legendarium affine new narrative or new story from it. So I use the guts of that gem as the background engine to create this one, which I've just started on yet. So there is no finished Silmarillion yet using these mathematical constructs yet. I'm just starting to work on it. That'll probably be like 6 months out, but nevertheless.
Wow. And by the way, I figured out like on my calendar that this is actually today. So, hey, I thought I'll just share the meme. Valima Moran Kermie, the elven dark
Oh yeah,
moon of the first harvest, and this moon aligns with the Vala Irmo or Lorien. Okay, so
right,
you can look that up. We're going to be posting that on our wall, and I thought that I would at least share the meme here in the video. So
right.
we're already
Yeah,
in
cool.
the dark moon phase here, where the moon is like disappearing,
Right.
and it won't return until around. So the newest dark moon, that would be on the 14th, like the actual new moon.
hmm
So we figure by the morning of the 16th, it'll probably be Queron Caramier by then, because we figure it's about a day and a half before and a day and a half after, when
Right.
it's because it's dark for 3 days time. So we do
Right.
it at the beginning of the darkness, and then we celebrate when the light comes back. The middle part is the new moon, according to astrology and other things like that. Maybe I guess that in astronomy the new moon is noted as well, right? That when the sun and the moon come
Yeah.
together, like
Yeah.
longitude wise. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, but the elves didn't do it that way. They
They
saw it
almost
as
certain.
the darkening of the moon, like when it began the darkness, like when it disappeared, and then when it came back. And other
Yeah,
ancient civilizations did it that way too.
yeah, they almost certainly did it directly observationally, much like now in Islam all over the world, the various Muslims basically compete
Yeah.
to see who will see the first crescent moon, and there has to be a number of witnesses there, so you can't just say, "Well, I saw it." You have to have other witnesses in the same basic
Yeah.
place to say, "Well, I saw it too." I think there has to be three, but I think there has to be three Muslims of good standing or something of that nature. But
Wow.
that's
Okay.
that
Well, and
that's
actually,
it.
I mean, before the I guess the pollution of the religion, because by the way, Christianity and like all of the Abrahamic religions have been polluted for political reasons. Um, that region of the world was so amazing with its science. Like it
Oh,
was
definitely,
just
yes. During the Middle
staggering.
Ages, especially. Yeah.
So I know that there's still some threads of that science interest there.
Right.
I definitely honor that. And actually, as an astrologer, which I am under the understanding that astrology was actually the first science. Okay. Meaning the things that were tracked and, like
Right.
noted in the world. It was one of the first sciences. It was this region of the world where everything like kind of rooted and then it went outward into, so the Vedic astrology like is still from the same region, like at and then there was some that went west and some that went south, and
Right.
so it's, but that is the center of the area where astrology was really a thing, and they came up with a lot of techniques in that area. Okay. Not just the Chaldean. There's
Right.
Greek. There's there's Saudi Arabian. I mean, like all of those like Persian. There's so much there before it even reaches India. Okay, and let me tell you, India, Jyotish is like an amazing body of material.
Right.
Um, and all of it was like centered around this area. So no, I have very deep resonance with that, and I think that it's so interesting that even with their current, if you will, regime, okay, that they still honor their traditions with the moon and Venus, and like
Right.
their symbols, and that they still honor astrology in their own way. So it's pretty interesting. So very good. We have the dark moon of the first harvest, which is the month of
Yep.
July in the as a
Right.
as the Gregorian calendar overlay. So yeah, so I'll be posting that later today
Cool.
before I go to
Right. Okay.
my friend's office. So I'll be doing that when I get off. But thought I would share it while I was here. So very good. Excellent, you guys. We will be seeing you, and thank you for showing up for our presentation. Actually, it's really Dave's presentation, but um, you know what? We're all privileged that Dave is still grinding away at all of this stuff. He's got so many projects that he wants to share with you. I'm so glad that he shared one of his like projects right
Yeah,
now.
I'll just go really quickly through the gems that I have. I don't, only a few of them, like Neurogate, are public facing. The rest of them are either for my personal use or for Way of Artist Lawyers use. But uh, got Neurogate, which we have a video on that.
Okay.
Uh, I wrote something called the AM manifold sputter engine, which is using fluid dynamics and plasma physics to basically use the similar mathematical underlying patterns to point them at the Legendarium and unveil hidden structures. So that's two of them. The Einolendic resonance diagnostics, that's the one that Lisa referred to earlier
Yeah.
about does a personality inventory and gives advice based on your situation. The Mythic Weaver engine, I mentioned that already. That's the one where you can wave new token FE narratives. Uh, the Black Army filter, if somebody wants to work with me, you have to answer some questions first, and the Black Army filter, Jim, determines whether you're compatible with me or not.
Yeah, well, meaning that, yeah, well, because it catches things that, like, personality wise, you might
Right,
not,
right.
you know, and by the way, like, it's not meant as a, like, an insult or anything. We're talking about just, you know, how, you know, because it has to be beneficial for the other person as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
If the other person gets nothing out of it and I get nothing out of it, then there's no need
there's
to
no
interact,
point,
really.
and let's
Yeah.
save time, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and that's basically what this is about because we've had people in the past that seem to be okay, and then either there was a dramatic blowout like happened with Crazy A, or they just fell
Yeah,
away, one or the other, you know. But
yeah.
uh, and I have one called my Mythic grammar compiler. That basically you can feed it any method. It doesn't have to be Tolkien. You can feed it any mythology, and it'll derive axioms and invariants, which is what the Mythic Weaver engine uses to create a new narrative that is in line. In other words, what my idea was for the Mythic Weaver engine, you want to make it so it generates something that's very difficult to tell apart from the original author. And the Mythic grammar compiler detects all the mathematical structures for that. So say you fed it something like I don't know, some sci-fi story. It
Oh,
would
right,
define
right. Okay. Mm.
it would get the axioms and invariants from that, and you could put that in a Mythic Weaver engine, and it would write a story that was very similar in style to what the original author might have written.
Interesting.
Uh, I
Yeah.
have my I have my general research partner Jim, which I use personally. That it
Okay.
has all of my autobiographical data in it, so it'll create
Yeah. This
things
it
according
probably
to.
helps you to have everything. Like it's almost
Yeah,
like your assistant because like that's something that you've needed for a long time, and none of us qualify as your
right.
assistant. So Dave had to make an assistant, but like it's a very practical, you know, like assistant, meaning again, it's a servant rather than, you know, a replacement of a human. However, if there are humans that like, you know, feel really intrigued by this work and they want to contribute and everything, Dave has a way to check like if you guys are on the same page. Like it's really
Right.
cool, and then you'll know, and then he'll know, and you know it'll be like, oh my god, this is such a match, or you know, oh well, maybe it's not, you know, maybe it's not what either one of us are looking for. Saves a bunch of
Right.
time and
Exactly.
trauma for both people. You know?
That's that's the point. And then the last one I have
Yeah.
is what for my personal use, is called the planetary social interpolation gem. And what that does is, since I'm on the autism spectrum, sometimes I'm not aware of how my statements will come off to neurotypical people. So what this does,
Oh.
it takes something that I think of, say we're, I don't know, say I want to publish an article that's somewhat controversial. I'll run it through this thing, and it'll give me basically an idea of how a neurotypical audience may react to my stuff. So that's
Oh, wow. And
that's
then you
basically what
can
that.
either like define things more or like soften the
Or
language,
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
without compromising meaning. You
right,
can soften the language so that
right,
like it doesn't trigger people. Yeah.
right.
I mean, people are going
Because
to get
people,
triggered anyway,
right,
but the thing is that that's not your problem at that point.
right,
Like,
right,
you know, um, and even if you had outright things that you know were poking holes at people, like I mean,
right.
it's you know the trigger actually itself is more about them rather than you. You
Exactly.
know,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, other than coming out and directly insulting someone, but
I
that's a
know, but
different thing.
that's a different
Yeah,
thing, and even
yeah,
that says a lot more about you than it says about them,
right,
right?
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So we're and we try to focus not so much on a person. Like we're not, you know, so and so is bad. Like that's not what's going on. Like we are more about the data or the output, like being, you know,
Exactly. Yeah.
like how can we either fix this, use this, whatever. You know,
Right.
we're our focus is on the thing rather than the
Right.
person.
Right.
So, anyway, well, we'll let you get going. So, Dave, did you list off about 9? If I kept track of everything, was it
Let's
about
see
9
here. Let's
particular
see. 1,
gems?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 9. Yeah.
Gosh, dang it!
Yeah.
I was counting them on my fingers. I'm like, can that be that many?
Yeah. And there may
Awesome.
be more because it's
Well, yeah, it continues to go.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, like, and we have like an actual, well, we have a NeuroGate, like category. Maybe what we need to do is make playlists for all the categories of each gem as we unfold them.
Yeah,
Maybe we
that's a good
even need a
idea.
category of all of the AI stuff that you're generating. And by the way, all of these are still meant for human, you know, interaction and all of this. We're not going to come on and be like not us, okay? We're going to actually still be us.
Oh yeah,
That you're not going to you're not
when
going to get things that are like, you know, oh, we're just AI, like, you know, faces and, you know, like
well,
not real.
some of this, you know,
No.
because of what I, of my Tolkien interests, YouTube, you know, recommends a whole bunch of Tolkien related videos. A lot of
Yeah.
them now are using synthetic voices to, you
And
know,
it's the
to
same ones.
yeah,
Oh my God. Oh, there's this one that's so annoying. He sounds like he's from the Midwest or something.
yeah, oh
And I
yeah,
hear
yeah,
it and I'm like, oh, I can't listen to this.
yeah.
Right. And I know that they use that voice because it's very down homey and, you know, it speaks to a certain, you know, part of the population that is like, you know, from the cowboys or, you know, like, or
Some
like
of the token
there's,
ones use some of the token ones use this British voice that's
and the
widely
British one.
duplicated.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. Like to make it like, oh, I'm so scholarly.
So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, you are not going to get fake voices from us. You know, we use AI for computation and, you know, things like that, but we don't use it to replace our humanity. So I just want you guys to all know that before we go. And I've already highlighted everybody that showed up today, and I highlighted at one point the publication that Dave
right,
is
yeah,
working with his latest project. So anyway, we're going to get going. It's been over 2 hours, so we'll go ahead
right,
and let you guys go. Thank you so much for being here.
yeah.
Thank you
Thanks
for
for being here.
tuning in. We adore you guys, and happy Moron Kermier with we're going to be talking about Irmo when we do our post on Patreon and on and you know, I wonder if I should do the posts on YouTube too. I should like
Mm.
think about doing that. Oh, good grief. She says Mara Mista. Thank
Yeah.
you. Awesome. Thank you, Vala Music. We're gonna get going now. And you guys have a wonderful weekend, a wonderful summer, and a wonderful dark moon. And we're going to be coming into a new cycle come Queran Keremier, which is around the 16th of July. So we'll be seeing you then. And we will be back with more videos from Dave. Okay. Take care, you guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.